Welcome to Elevate, the masterclass where we dissect the elements of exceptional achievement and lifestyle design with a focus on personal growth and real estate investing. Now, here's your host, Tyler Chesser.
Elevate Nation, welcome back. This is Tyler Chesser. I'm so thankful to have you here, and I'm blessed and grateful to be sitting with Greg Dickerson. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing great, Tyler. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic, and really love the beautiful map behind you. I don't know what my thing is with geography and maps. It just gets me excited. What about you?
That's cool. Yeah, it's great. I used to have this picture. If you look at some of my other videos, I used to keep a picture of Dalmatians behind me, and it's really colorful. So I wanted to put something a little bit more neutral, but it's really cool because I can say, hey, man, I've got the whole world behind me.
That's right. You got the whole world on your shoulders, so to speak, if you're watching on YouTube there. And you can see mine as well. And I don't know what it is. It just inspires me. And, then you can drill down and you can look at the details. Hey, where's this located and where can we go next? And who can we serve and what can we learn? And, what is there to know? It's really limitless and it's really exciting. And I think
it is. And this one, you can't really see it, but it's magnetic, and I keep these little pins to places where we've traveled. So that's the other purpose that it serves as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of travel as well. And that's one of the things that we'll probably do next is start dropping some pins on there. But there's, it's funny when anyone asks me, hey, where else do you want to travel? It's like everywhere. Let's go everywhere. I want to go to every single corner.
The world is cool, and it's so accessible now. And, I went in the military right out of high school, and I traveled all over Asia. So I've been to all of those countries. Never done much of Europe. So that's kind of, the countries that I'm exploring now, and would really like to get out and explore more. And of course, we can't go anywhere right now, but we're still in COVID-19, situation here. We're in 2020, July of 2020 still. So anyways.
I know it's crazy, but that doesn't mean that the future, that new openings and new possibilities are not going to be available to us. So I know you're on board with that, Greg. And while we're here, let's welcome Elevate Nation back because it's absolutely time to take it to another level. I have no doubt we're going to do that today. I want to welcome you back to the show where our mission is to identify and apply how the best of the best raise the bar personally and professionally to achieve greatness in real estate, which is a vehicle, as I always say, and beyond, in creating greatness in your life and creating, elevating to a life without limits. And this is a show where we talk about the habits, the mindset, the routines, the systems, the tools, the strategies, and the multidisciplinary approach so that you can learn from individuals like Greg who are elevating to a life without limits so you can do the same for yourself and so that you can live a life of abundance, of joy, of happiness, of excitement, of adventure, as we're talking about, of adventure and traveling the world and meeting new people and giving back to other people. And so, as you know, this is a masterclass for leaders and those looking to achieve uncommon results and purposeful outcomes through real estate investing and ultimately in their lives. If you appreciate what we're doing on the show, I would certainly be grateful if you subscribe to the show, if you gave us a rating or review. It helps. Our goal is to reach millions of people with the message that you don't have to live a life that you tolerate. You can actually live a life of unlimited abundance. And you know what we're all about here. So I just want to remind you that paying it forward is absolutely key. So share this with someone else. Send this in a text message or post it on social media, whatever you want to do. But ultimately, somebody needs to know this information. Somebody needs to hear this conversation that we're going to have today with Greg. And I'm really excited to introduce you to Greg Dickerson, who is a serial entrepreneur, a real estate developer, a coach, and a mentor. He has bought, developed, and sold over $250 million in real estate. He's built and renovated hundreds of custom homes and commercial buildings. He's developed residential and mixed-use subdivisions and started 12 different companies from the ground up. Greg currently coaches and mentors some of the top entrepreneurs and real estate investors around the world, helping them start, grow, and scale their business, raise more capital, and do bigger deals. Greg's current clients have over $2 billion in assets under management and deals in process. Greg is an expert on the topics of entrepreneurship, leadership, and real estate, and is regularly interviewed on some of the top real estate investing and business podcasts today. And so we're definitely going to add Elevate to that list absolutely now. So we're really excited about that. And Greg also served in the United States Navy right out of high school and has been a leader in the community, as well as supporting and advising and serving on the boards of several churches, ministries, and nonprofit organizations. So Greg, with all that said, what an impressive bio, and welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit more about yourself behind the bio.
Yeah. So that's a great way to describe adult ADD, right? So, so the cool part is, and for everybody listening, what you talk about in terms of taking your life to the next level of success and things like that, that can be compartmentalized. So you can have that financially, spiritually, mentally, physically, right? So when people say, what's your definition of success? You have all those different areas. So that's one thing to keep in mind as we talk about success. And, obviously today we might be talking more about financial and business and things like that. But, going back, like you said, I joined the Navy right out of high school and, did 4 years. So I started my career, that $250 million that I did in real estate, buying, developing, and selling, was all my own money, no investors, no backers, and no connections. I mean, I started from scratch with absolutely nothing. Nobody in my family were entrepreneurs. None of them had any money. My dad was a career military guy. My mom was a career with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And, but I had I was a natural born entrepreneur. I had a hard work ethic growing up. My dad went in the Navy, enlisted, came out an officer. I went in, enlisted, did my 4 years. So I come from a blue collar, hard working family, and we were middle class. As when he made it to the officer ranks, we ended up a little bit more middle class than where we started out as an enlisted military person. You're in the lower income status of the country. It's not a lot of money, great benefits, but you don't get paid a lot of money. So I always had the desire to want to create my own thing, do my own thing, have my own company, my own business. Back then, I had no idea how it was going to happen. I was out of high school, going in the military. But, going back to my childhood ages, I was the kid running around the neighborhood, knocking on your door. If your grass needed cutting, I'd be knocking on your door. Hey, my name's Greg. I live down the street. I need to make some money. Can I cut your grass? And I had a lawnmower and a gas can right there, and I'm 10 years old. So what are you going to say, Because I ain't leaving. I'm like, I'm going to cut your grass. It's only $10. I got everything right here. So, and it's hot, So this was in Southern California when I was real little when I started, and then it was Pensacola, Florida, 5th grade to 11th grade. So those are hot, humid climates in the summer. So that was a great way to make some money. And then fall and winter, I'd take my rake, big, pine needle rake in Florida, and I'd take it around the houses. Same thing. I'd knock on your door. I need to make some money. I've got a rake right here. I've got a tarp. I'll rake your pine needle. People hated doing that in Florida in the winter when it's cold. So that's how I learned. I started by knocking on doors, doing whatever it took to make some money because my parents didn't supply anything. If I wanted to do something, I had to make the money to do it. And then my dad would charge me for using his equipment. So he took 10% of everything I made, wow. Kind of teaching me business, and whatever I did around the house, all the chores, he would pay me for little things here and there. And, when I was old enough to drive and used his car, I had to bring it back full of gas and clean, no matter what condition it was in. And it always was dirty and empty on Friday. I never understood that, until I got a little older, so I'd get it on the weekends. I'd have to clean it and fill it up with gas when I returned it. So.
Wow. So where does that drive come from, and where did it come from then? Was it just out of pure necessity and you knew that you needed to make extra money purely from a practical standpoint, or was there something else? Or you always had that innate drive to go and create?
Yeah. I was just born that way. So I just, my mom said I had the gift of gab. So I'd be out talking to people. I had no issues knocking on doors. If I wanted something, my dad, they wouldn't give me money. I had to go get it. So like I took martial arts as a kid, and I mean, literally I'm in, I'm not even old enough to drive yet. This is probably 6th grade. I started in martial arts, and in order to buy the uniform and take the testing, that were like, I don't know, $20, $40, whatever it was back then, I had to go make the money to do it. They would not pay for it. They said, if you want to do this, you need to earn money and pay for it. So, those lessons were taught to me young in terms of how to make money. So that's what's really cool. I learned very young. I can go create money. I can make money from nowhere out of nothing. Obviously you need, something. You need a rake, you need a lawnmower, but, I'd wash your car. So with your equipment, or I'd cut your grass with your equipment. Some people wanted me to use their stuff. So I learned very young that if you want something, you can go out and work for it and create it. The problem was what I was learning was to work hard, not smart, not efficient, but hard. And I was learning the harder you work, the more you can make. So that's how I was wired, to just work hard, to do whatever it takes. You take care of business first, and then you can go enjoy yourself, So, but as far as wanting to be that entrepreneur, and being a hard worker, I guess, are you born with it or do you learn it? My dad was a very hard worker, and he made me do everything. So maybe that was ingrained in me there. But the entrepreneurial thing, nobody in my family was that way, and that wasn't taught or ingrained in me. They were pushing me to stay in the military as a career. That's all I heard growing up. It wasn't what college. It was like, when you going in the Navy, And every male in my family were all military, so it was like a rite of passage. But I always had that entrepreneurial bug in me. I always had this thing in me that I knew I was created for more. I knew I was built for more. Not that there's anything wrong with having a job. It's just not everybody's wired that way. I was wired for more than just filling a billet, which is what they call it in the military.
This episode of Elevate is brought to you by CF Capital, a real estate investment firm formed by myself and my partner, Brian Flaherty, where we invest in multifamily real estate communities across the Southeast United States. If you'd like to learn more about our approach, our mission, our acquisition criteria, and how you can learn more about future opportunities, visit cfcapllc.com. Again, that's cfcapllc.com. You know, it's such an interesting process when you learn that your background was you learned how to work hard, but you didn't learn how to work smart. And when did you make the shift in terms of making quantum leaps? Because you went from an incremental growth just based on pure effort, pure ambition, pure hustle to then making quantum leaps. So when did that shift happen?
When I started pouring into myself. So I left the construction. So after the Navy, the only two things I've ever done are restaurants and construction. I did retail in the Navy. So I learned hard work, discipline, systems, standard operating procedures, redundancy. That's what the military is all about, systems and operating procedures. So that was great training. I had some business training in the retail aspects of the Navy, some accounting and, things like that. You had to go to school for it. So I had a good little background there, but then when I got out, I'd always had my own little side business doing some construction. I was handy. And then I was working in restaurants. That was kind of my background. I worked in restaurants, before I went in the Navy, and went to work for this one company, Lone Star Steakhouses, in their management program. And they had the most unbelievable business training you could get. And they also made you read books. So I started reading these books, The 1 Minute Manager. And there's a series of books about managing people. And that's all about leveraging human resources, and human capital. And then I read Managing by Harold Janine, which he was the CEO of ITT, multi-conglomerate. So this guy's teaching you how to manage, all these different corporations all around the world. They were huge. So that's where I started learning, and the light bulb went off, to where, I was thinking, man, there's only so much I can do with my hands, and starting my own construction business, me doing all the work myself, you're limited. So I learned very quickly, you have to leverage other people, their time, their talent, their abilities, and their resources in order to grow and scale. So I learned it all through the restaurants. I learned it through my own business by reading these books that really opened my mind. Then I started reading Zig Ziglar. Then I found Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I found Power of Positive Thinking, and then Tony Robbins. Then I just started piling them on, and I just started devouring, books and content. So for me, it was never music in my, back in the day of the cassette tape Walkman and the CD players and, then the 80 gig iPod. It was always books on tape, always. So if I'm out exercising, walking, driving around, I was just pumping my head full of as much of that stuff as I could get, because I was seeing the results of my life. Here's a guy that, had no formal education, no formal training really, other than the military that doesn't, I did retail, so that was okay, but it was vending machines, ship store, barber shops, a little bit different. But that restaurant training and that self-education through those books and courses really opened my mind up to, man, you can do anything you want if you educate yourself and you work hard and you work smart.
I couldn't agree more. And that's really what this show is all about, is about pouring into yourself. It's about investing in yourself so that you can make quantum leaps, so that you can open your mind to new possibilities rather than, perhaps your surroundings before. And I love one of the quotes that you've, been quoted of before, or quoted in saying before, is that the most profitable investment you can make is in yourself, and that it returns infinitely for the rest of your life, which I could not agree more. And I'd love to know, as you started to make those shifts, how do you continue to make those shifts now, and how are you investing in yourself today?
The same way. So I'm constantly reading and studying people that I admire in the business world. The Richard Bransons, the Tillman Fertittas, the Marcus Lemonis, Donald Trump's business career. No matter what you think of him, he has a business and real estate career where he's done some pretty incredible things, even working through bankruptcies and stuff like that. Sam Zell, one of my favorite, real estate investor developers of all time. I'm kind of modeled after him. He does equity capital with companies and real estate. So I read his book back in the day, Maverick Real Estate Investor. That really opened my mind to bigger things. I've studied other, people in the real estate world. Dave Lindahl was one of the old books I read early on. So even today, I study those types of people. I study economists. especially with what's going on right now. I watch CNBC and kind of keep up with, the daily business goings on, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, so I'll watch financial news and just kind of keep up with that. And then, I listen to podcasts, all the top podcasts out there, business podcasts, real estate podcasts, social media marketing, digital marketing, all of that, so you have Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, all the people out there. Grant and I, have a connection. We did an interview together. I've known him for a while. And so I just pour into myself and try to stay as relevant as possible. I'm 53 now, and I didn't send my first email until 2001. Didn't even know how to use any of that stuff. I didn't even have a smartphone until 2011. So, I've embraced technology. I've embraced the internet. I've embraced, digital marketing, e-commerce, and I'm very good with technology now. And you learn by doing. So you educate yourself and you take action on it. And that's really the differentiator, is that when I read and learn a concept, now there's some stuff that have stuck with me my entire life. My management philosophy from the 1 Minute Manager and Managing by Harold Janine, that is my management philosophy, and I've never changed it. And almost everything that you read or study today is based on those principles, in terms of leading, delegating, motivating, managing, recruiting, hiring, training. That's all in that system. And everybody else that, has kind of come from that world of it, even going back to like Simon Sinek, start with why. I mean, we were doing that way back in the day. The one thing, Gary Keller, we were doing that. Those are not new concepts. There's nothing new under the sun. So I learned, find something that works, stick with it, and drill down on it. Chet Holmes, one of the greatest marketers of all time, the ultimate sales machine, talks about that. Don't do 100 things, okay, do, maybe 10 things extremely well. And even drill that down even more to do one thing better than anybody else. And that's how you become number one in your industry, or top in your industry. So those are the philosophies that I was fortunate enough to learn by reading through those books, studying those people. And I continue to pour into myself. I'll review some of the old stuff, keep up with the new stuff, because from a technology standpoint and the way we do business, that has changed and evolved. But as far as recruiting, hiring, training, leading, delegating, motivating, there's nothing new under the sun there. People are people. We're emotional beings. We respond to things certain ways. And it's all about helping other people, produce good results through visionary leadership, giving them ownership, and providing clear direction and knowing certain terms exactly what you expect from people to win, and holding them accountable to that goal, providing that instant feedback, and rewarding good performance, and then redirecting poor performance in a way that they understand that it's about the behavior and the result, not the individual. So that's, the big system in a nutshell, down to the, where it meets the street.
Yeah, it's so much value there. And I just love how humble you are and how you show up with humility in the way that you learn and the way that you digest information, the way that you digest data and, gain insights yourself, and, bring that as a leader, whether you're leading yourself or other people, and you recognize that leveraging human capital is really the key to making those quantum leaps, but then also plugging in and being willing to adapt and being willing to adjust your approach, whether it's from a technological standpoint or whether it's based on what's happening in the economy. And I know you and I even had a recent conversation where you talked about wartime economics, and perhaps that's where we are right now. I definitely want to get into that. But before we get there, one thing that seems to be so appropriate for this part of our conversation is the role of mindset, because if you approach all of this avalanche and overabundance of information that we all have the access to at our fingertips at any point in time, it's about your psychology. It's about how do you approach this and how do you act, how do you take massive action. So I'd love to know, what role has mindset played in the way that you've grown and the way that you continue to grow today?
So number one, leadership's all about serving. So it's my moral obligation, my responsibility to be the best I can be, so I can serve everybody else that I do business with in my organization, whether they work under me. And I always flip that pyramid upside down. So the CEO's at the bottom serving up. So I have to give everybody in that organization everything they need: tools, training, systems, and support to be successful in that clear direction. So it all starts there, from bettering yourself so you can be the best you can be at every level of the organization, and showing up the right way with the right tools and the right information So that's mindset. So the mindset's a little different than what a lot of people think. A lot of people think mindset in terms of, law of attraction, manifestation, things like that. What mindset is two things. Number one, it's realizing you don't know what you don't know. And the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. That's number one. You got to realize, man, I don't know anything. No matter how far I get, I don't know anything. There's always somebody better. There's always somebody who knows more, and I can learn everything from everybody, not just something from somebody or some circumstance. I can learn everything from everybody in every circumstance. So any environment I'm in, mindset, instead of sitting in a seminar going, I've heard this all before, this guy doesn't know anything. What I do is I sit there and say, okay, I may have heard this, but I may not have heard it this way applied in that fashion. So I always look for the gems in every single situation, every setting, every podcast, every video, every seminar, every book. What is there new in here in the application of this knowledge and wisdom that I've never seen before? That's really the first step in a mindset, is understanding that, you have unlimited capacity here if you use it and allow it to come in and try to look for it in different ways in every situation. And, the more you know, the more opportunities you'll see. So by embracing what it is you don't know, instead of having this ego, like in my companies, I look for people who are better, smarter, more efficient than me, that were experienced. And I learned from them. Even my own employees have been some of my mentors. I hire people with, MBAs to come work for me. I'm not a college grad. I had no ego, no intimidation, no nothing. I was like, I don't know what you know. You went to school, you have to teach me what you know. Teach me what they taught you. And I would sit down and I would ask questions. And that's the other thing, is asking questions versus telling people what you know or trying to show what you know. It's having the mindset of a servant, of a beginner, always, in seeking wisdom in every situation and asking good, intelligent questions, to the next level. So that is a mindset, right? And then, of course, the more traditional mindset is realizing that you have unlimited, untapped potential within the realistic limits of your physical abilities, right? I'm not going to go play quarterback for doing a Patriots. It ain't going to happen. But I can sure understand how the game works, and I can sure understand potentially how to coach somebody in that, but I'm not going to go throw the ball. So you do have some physical limitations, but in terms of, opportunities, you're really unlimited to the capacity that you're willing to open your mind and learn and grow as a professional. So that is a mindset. And then the third most traditional thing in terms of mindset, or for whatever number we're on, is the negative things that come into your mind. So limiting beliefs, and a lot of people here are all limiting beliefs, and what they really don't understand is, everybody has them every day. Anytime you tell yourself no, or you talk yourself out of something for whatever reason, I can't do that because this, there's no deals out there. No seller is going to sell to me direct. The market's too hot. All the brokers have the deals. That's a limiting belief. That's mindset. Whereas my mindset is I'm going to do whatever it takes, morally, legally, and ethically. I'm going to ask and I'm going to request. I don't care how many no's I get. I'm going to keep asking. Just because 100 sellers said no doesn't mean that the 101st seller will say no. So I just keep going, right? And then if there's an answer I'm looking for, I just keep searching until I find that answer. So I don't accept limiting beliefs. Now, again, that's because I know that, a lot of things are possible and almost nothing is impossible within, your physical limitations. But there are certain laws, that we're not going to defy, like gravity and things like that. I'm not going to jump off a building and think that I can fly. So what I mean is I'm tenacious and I'm going to stay after it, and I'm resourceful. And, it's not lack of resources, it's lack of resourcefulness that stops a lot of people. And that starts right up in their mind. They don't even try because they've heard somebody else say, well, that's not going to work. Like direct mail in real estate. You hear a lot of people say direct mail doesn't work. Sure it does. I got a text from one of my clients today. He got a deal from something sent out earlier this year, but everybody will tell you direct mail doesn't work. It's just consistency, and it's staying on it, and it's being resourceful. And then, the final step in the mindset, when you get rid of those limiting beliefs and you don't let them stop you, don't talk yourself out of things, is to realize that you can do anything if you put your mind to it, get the skills, the training, and then take the appropriate, deliberate action, focused action, not just massive action. You got to take the right action on the right things at the right time with the right vehicle, business opportunity, in order to move the ball forward.
Wow, incredibly well said, Greg. There's so much value there, and I've just got to make a mention. I mean, obviously, I always say re-listen to the episodes, but you just want to pause right now and go ahead and jump back and replay that 3, 4, 5 times because there's so much gold there, so much wisdom, and obviously, there's many different directions I could go there. There's many different things I could drill into, but one thing I just wanted to highlight again is that the more the more opportunities you'll see, and obviously recognizing that there are limiting beliefs there are things that we all deal with, even if even folks like Greg, who are really elevating to a life without limits, who continue to ascend to the next level, who continue to go from excellent to extraordinary, and beyond, recognize that those limiting beliefs still occur and that they are still there, and you just live with them and you overcome them and you don't accept them. So I just think there's so much value in that, and I really appreciate you going through that. And I'd love to shift just briefly in our conversation in terms of what's going on today. And you mentioned wartime economics previously in a previous conversation. That really that's the fact of the matter right now. And I'd love for you to just really describe what you mean by that and how we can best operate in this environment.
Yeah, wartime economics. So I think we were talking at the federal level and what the Fed's response to what's going on right now, July of 2020, for whoever and whenever you're listening and watching this. When you're at war, you have to just unload the coffers, open the vault, and you got to spend what you got to spend to win that war. So we're in a war with coronavirus right now from a health standpoint and an economic standpoint. So the first thing they did was they bolstered investor confidence by shoring up the stock market. So what does that mean? If stocks continue to tank, then people panic and you have a run on the stock market like you'd have a run on the banks. So the Fed had to stop that and give confidence to the market that let the world know, because we are the reserve currency of the world. We are the global economic superpower of the world. We have the largest economy. Everybody else relies on us. We could shut the world off and we'd be fine. They cannot shut the United States off. So what the Fed did and what the Treasury did was send a message to the world: we are not going to let the economy of the United States fail. That's number one. Number two is they got to spend whatever it takes to get this thing under control. So they're putting billions of dollars behind the science and behind the research and ramping up for vaccines to deploy that. So when you think on a global, economic macro scale, wartime economics means you open the vault, you print what you got to print, you put the money out there, and you worry about how to deal with it later. So that's kind of where we're at. And then you get into, discussions of, is inflation going to be a problem? Is the dollar going to lose value? And those types of things. And where is the inflation going to be? And of course, with what the Fed is doing, if you look at where they're deploying the capital, it's at the asset level. So, the stock market, stocks, bonds, treasuries, those are the assets that are being inflated. Right now, mortgage rates are being held low because they're buying the mortgage-backed securities. So housing mortgage rates are at all-time lows right now. They were another record level today, 2.5%, I think you can get on a 30-year mortgage. So that's driving demand for housing and creating an asset, a little bit of asset inflation there. But, as rates rise, that will slip and, demand will drop and inventory will rise. So that'll balance out. The real question everybody has is all this money that the Fed has put out there buying treasuries, buying corporate, bonds, buying mortgage-backed securities, what is that going to do, for inflation? And again, we're already seeing that at the asset level. We're not going to have real inflation at the retail level because the money has not been put in the pocket of the consumers. That's when you would get real inflation risk is if the money actually ended up in our pockets versus at the bank level, which is where it's at to bolster the overall macro economy. And we still have 30% of the economy shut down. So until you get that firing again, you can't have the kind of spending that it takes to drive inflation. So just like we saw 2009 on, we didn't get any real inflation at the retail level, mostly at the asset level because of the quantitative easing. That's kind of where we're at now. So those are the conversations that are going on at the high levels of macroeconomics and global economics, at that level in terms of a wartime situation that we're in with fiscal policy.
I just think it's so important for real estate investors, whether you're doing business on a large scale, a medium scale, a small scale, or if you're looking to get into the space, or if you're operating a business, to be fully cognizant of what's going on from a macroeconomic standpoint, whether it's nationwide, globally, or what have you. And obviously today we live in a global economy. So what's going on across the world? What are these different factors? How can we skate where the puck is going? How can we get ahead of the issues? How can we capture opportunities? Because the more you know, the more opportunities become available to you. So, what are you seeing in terms of opportunities, over the next 12, 18 months, so to speak, in terms of real estate investing and real estate opportunities itself?
So obviously housing. So people need food, they need water, they need housing, right? Those are the three things that you cannot live without as a human race. So those three areas of investment, when you think about food and water, how can you invest in that and make money? Well, there's ways from an e-commerce level that you can, a retail level where you can participate in that in a number of different ways. And from a real estate standpoint, you can own facilities that transport those goods and services. Water needs land, in terms of bottled water, in terms of treatment plants, things like that. There's ways to invest in infrastructure that produce clean water and produce more of it. And then you have the bottled water in the consumer market for water in general, food, all kinds of opportunities there at the wholesale level to the consumer, as well as at the retail level, and watching. So here's what's really cool. So every business in this environment has become a tech company, whether they knew it or not, wanted it or not, liked it or not, right? Everybody's being forced to embrace technology now and to make things more convenient. So that's where the real opportunities are from an investment standpoint. So if you think about real estate, how can you position yourself to take advantage of the forward trends with technology that everybody's embracing, with food delivery services and takeout services, from water consumption, and at a retail level of bottled water and goods and things like that, at a wholesale level of creating, opportunities through housing, right? So rental housing. So now you're seeing single family home rental demand rising, turnkey real estate opportunities rising, where people are just looking for turnkey rentals to own, for rent subdivisions that are being built, not just apartment buildings. And then you have the workforce leaving urban cores and companies not requiring people to have to come to a city to work now. They're opening that up across borders where people can work from where they are. So that's creating different opportunities from, a retail level, wholesale level, and from a housing level. So it's really interesting, what's going on in society and the economy right now, and what it's going to look like, a year or two from now once we get this behind us.
Are you someone who's seriously looking to elevate your life, your business, your real estate portfolio, your cash flow, your deal opportunities, your access to opportunities, your network this year? Well, if that's you, then I invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com, because I'm currently opening up a few coaching spots for people like you who want to close the gap from where you are to where you want to be, and really, expand that beyond your wildest dreams and explode your business, explode your deal opportunities, explode your vision for what you're looking to create. If that's you, I invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com. I really have to tell you that this is not for everyone. This is only for those who are decisive. They're committed. They're willing to do whatever it takes. They're willing to invest time, energy, and resources into themselves to get to where they want to be and to live a life without limits, to elevate to a life without limits, which is really what we're all about on this show. If that is you, again, I invite you to visit coachwithtyler.com. Again, that's coachwithtyler.com. Totally. And I love what you mentioned there in terms of this entire situation seems to have forced many companies to automatically become a technology company. It's so interesting. Yeah. And, I think it comes down to, well, what are these shifts requiring adaptation for in the future, right? And what sort of adaptation are consumers, being required to take? And, at the end of the day, and in my opinion, I think the folks that experience long-term success in business or, in life in general are those who are willing to adapt and be malleable and be nimble. And so I'd love to just kind of talk about adaptation and what role that has played for you in your life and in your career.
Embracing e-commerce. So, anybody listening to this, if you're thinking, man, I'm an entrepreneur, what sector do I get into? E-commerce. So e-commerce is anything, goods or services that you can sell online. Doesn't matter what it is. Online education is booming. That's one of my ventures now, is creating a school of entrepreneurship with courses on different things. That's just a huge booming business. E-commerce in terms of all kinds of different goods and services being sold digitally, as well as physical products. Amazon starting that trend. Everybody's getting into that now. That's going to require fulfillment, distribution centers, storage, things like that, and delivery, at certain levels. So E-commerce is where it's at. If you can do business and generate revenue without having to house physical products and leverage your intellectual capital, that's the biggest ROI out there right now, and it's the most scalable. So if you have the ability and the wherewithal to get into that space, that's where it's at. I think everybody should have an e-commerce business and focus on that and blow that up, and then you can redeploy the cash into other assets as you go along.
That's awesome. And I think you just planted many seeds there. So I think there's a lot of folks whose wheels are turning on what sort of opportunities they can create. And that's the exciting thing about this, is that there's no limits on what you can create, what excites you, what really, speaks to you, and what value can you bring to the world, and what's relevant, what is in demand. So, what are you most excited about these days, Greg? I know that obviously it seems like you've got many things on your plate and you've got many things that you're excited about, but what would you point to as being most excited about?
From a business model standpoint, this whole e-commerce. So I've just ventured into this space over the last couple of years. So I'm really excited about that and the opportunity there. And, what's really cool about that is, solving problems. So as an entrepreneur, we solve problems, right? That's what we do. We create opportunity out of nothing by solving problems. And you said the key word, demand. So a lot of people think, man, I need to create a market. I need to think something up, create demand for something. Really what you need to do is look at where is the demand already and what is the problem that market is having with something, where you can solve, that problem, and you can, create a solution to the problem at scale. That's where the opportunities are. Airbnb, right? There was a demand for a product, and they created a platform where people can find housing. It started out with couch surfing and renting bedrooms, and then it turned into housing. Uber, same kind of thing, right? There was a demand. The problem was the taxi service, the taxi industry, and there was more people wanting ride share and wanting to consolidate. So, Uber. So if you start thinking on those levels, at all levels, Open Door, OfferPad, people that are buying houses, they're tech platforms, right? Where WeWork messed up was actually taking on leases and owning properties versus just being a platform. They should have been a platform, to deliver that space, because that's still a huge need and a huge problem that needs to get resolved. I saw another one the other day, swimming pools. Now you can rent your swimming pool out by the hour. There's a platform, for that, like an Airbnb for swimming pools, So
that's smart.
Wherever there's already a market, you have millions of people going to beaches right now because they can't fly all around the world. So how do you get in front of that, and participate in something there? What is that pent up demand that's driving to that destination already? What do they need? How can you serve them? And then you think about like the health crisis, people are making millions of dollars with, PPE, masks, things like that. Now that's going to be a short-term thing potentially, but still there's an opportunity to just shift and then get ahead of that demand that's already there and solve a problem that has arrived. So those are the types of things you want to think about. Take something that's already there, make it better, bring it out mass, find a market that has pent up, built up demand where you can deliver, that has a problem, where you can deliver a better solution, and go from there. So those are the types of things to look at where you can fast track something. So that's what I'm excited about, is to see what's going to come next out of all this.
I love just the innovative thinking that, the approach that you take. And I think it's exciting. It's inspiring. It stokes my curiosity to be more curious and to go find more opportunities and more information, so that I'm more aware of those opportunities. And I know that many others would share that sort of excitement. And I love that. So I wanted to talk more about you pouring into yourself and how do you continue to do that. One thing that I find fascinating is that I believe to go from excellent to extraordinary, it's more of like a 2 millimeter shift. So what are you doing to sort of, slightly shift your approach and, raise the bar? So I'd love to know, how are you raising the bar today, whether it's personally or professionally, to kind of get to that next level yourself?
Staying sharp. So again, constantly of the mindset of a learner, seeker of wisdom, trying to learn something from every situation for everybody, and not assuming I already know it all and there's nothing new to learn. Because, even though there's nothing new under the sun, there's always something new you can learn. It just means that somebody else knew it, did it, whatever. And you go back, and you just never know what's going to come out of, these situations. So it's, it's seminars, books, courses, seminars that I go to, hearing other people and what they're doing, and sometimes in certain levels, all it takes is just a little bit of fractional improvement every day to be exponential. Other times you can have one conversation or one new idea that can change the entire trajectory of your life. and really, be a game changer. And, one of the people that's interesting lately, Bill Ackman, I don't know if a lot of people know Bill Ackman with Pershing Square, he's a activist investor, just raised a SPAC, special purpose acquisition company. These things are nothing new, but he's new in the way he's redoing this. So for people that don't know what a SPAC is, it's a company that goes public, raises capital as a public entity that then to go out and invest in things. It's a blind fund, just like you'd raise a real estate equity fund or private equity capital fund to go buy companies. They're going public on Wall Street, issuing shares of stock to raise capital to go do stuff. So what he's done is he's taken that same idea to a whole new level where there's demand, there's opportunity, and created this new deal, raised $5 billion to go out now and buy companies at the $10 billion and up level. Within his target, he's targeting about 100 different companies that he could potentially buy one of them or more. So again, you just never know. One little idea can just change the entire trajectory. Nobody's ever done anything like that. Biggest fund ever raised that way and the way you're doing it. So, just one little idea that's already been out there, but just tweaked, boom, now he's off to the races, and who knows what'll be the results of that.
Putting yourself in the frame of mind and the consciousness to recognize those opportunities and recognize those perhaps future shifting conversations or future shifting discussions. Maybe that is the case for somebody listening to this episode today, is that they got an idea that can totally change the trajectory of their life and, their business and their future if they take action on it, if they take effective action on it. And so I just think there's so much value there.
Key.
Yeah.
That's key. You've got it. So information in and of itself is worthless. You got to put it into action. That's where the gold is created.
That's it. Absolutely. And so, I'd love to know, with that said, how do you delineate information that's not appropriate for you and information that is appropriate for you as you're synthesizing so much data, so much input, and you're saying, look, this is not effective for me. This is the way I have to. I know it's a very general question, but I'm just curious, is there an approach that you take?
Yeah, so I study macroeconomics, so I study what the markets are doing, okay, what the Fed's doing, where they're putting their money, what public companies are doing, REITs, and where they're putting their money, the investments they're making, things like that. But I don't invest in stocks, I don't invest in bonds, but I watch what they're doing so I understand where the economy is going as a whole, so that I can understand when I do a real estate development deal or something like that, or I buy a company or I invest in a company, I kind of have an idea where the overall economy is moving and the demand. I'm spending zero time on cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. Zero. So that doesn't apply to me. So I'm staying within my sweet spot. Now I'm aware of it and I've kind of watched it, but to me, it's not good information that I want to act on. That's just too speculative. I don't understand it. I'm not going to take the time to understand it because I don't feel like that's a long-term wealth thing. I think it's too low of a barrier to entry. If you can just go create a cryptocurrency and start selling it, if Facebook can get into it and Google, you don't want to be in that game, right? So that's all speculative. Same thing with stocks. Okay, the only time I've ever done anything with stocks is when they hit bottom this recent time, in and out, and when they hit bottom back in 2009, in and out. So, again, stick with what you know in the areas that you're in and use the information of the momentum, to help you fully understand the things that you're getting involved with and investing in. And then the shiny objects, right? So everybody's got the one new thing or this great new strategy. And, if you want to raise capital, you need to know this. There is no one new thing. It's consistency. It's constantly pouring into yourself, staying focused. When you have something that's working for you, double down on it, triple down on it, blow that up, grow it, scale it, maximize it, automate it, then go do the next thing. And that's where a lot of people mess up, especially now, is they want it too fast and they get distracted versus if you got something that's working for you and making you good money, from a business standpoint, figure out how you can blow that up, grow it, scale it, systemize it, automate it, and then, then go do the next thing. Or reinvest the profits and just stay on that one thing. So that's kind of how I stay grounded. I'm like, this is working. I'm sticking with it.
I love that you said, you even mentioned the word several times, just speculation, because there's a huge difference in speculation and investing. It's gambling versus investing. And, you're investing when you are doing what you're doing. And if you're outside of your zone of competence with stocks or bonds or cryptocurrencies or whatever, you're speculating that the future is going to be vastly different than it is today. And, there's not a ton of value in that. You're rolling the dice. So I think there's a ton of value in what you're saying there. And Greg, if we were to wrap it all up in a big picture, what's the driving force behind what you do, and why are you so driven to continuously pour into yourself and continuously raise the bar?
So again, service and service of others. So I want to be the best I can be because I'm helping and working with a lot of people all over the world and around me locally to be the best they can be. So I want to show up at my best to be able to put my best out into the world. So you got to keep learning, you got to keep growing, you got to keep educating yourself and learning new things. And there's always something new to learn. You know, you can master stuff and you want to do that. You want mastery and you want to pick that skill or that craft. I'm a real estate developer. I've mastered that over my entire life. And I've taken that and parlayed it into equity capital, buying companies, building them up and selling them. Same kind of process. So that's the only two things I've ever really done, but I've done a lot of different things within those two things. So it keeps it interesting because I like to do different things, but it's very focused, very disciplined. And I've worked into the mastery of those aspects of it. And even at that level, there's still things that I don't do and don't understand, and I outsource and I farm out. Like I don't build spreadsheets. I can use them, but I don't build them. You know, I have my CFO do that. You know, so there's certain things that you don't spend your time on. Understand what your strengths are. Focus 100% on those. Outsource, delegate everything else, and stay in your lane and master what it is you're doing before you move on to other things.
Well, I just can't tell you how grateful I am that you've been able to serve us today and really, help us learn. And so many people here, there's always something new to learn. And I would imagine that you maybe even learned something yourself, maybe from something that you said, and just sharing your vision and your approach. It always helps clarify it. At least it does for me. And so I've just really enjoyed this. Greg, I just want to go ahead and transition into our rapid fire section. We call it the Rare Air Questionnaire. It's all about raising the bar. It's about going to the next level. It's about scaling the mountaintop and looking across the valley and saying, look, we've got 3 or 4 more mountains over there that we're going to scale. And guess what? There's probably more behind that. And so we're going to continue to push the limits. And with that said, I've just got a few questions for you here. The first one is, we talked about books. We've talked about learning and pouring into yourself throughout this conversation. But if you had to point to, and I know this is a very challenging question, if you had to point to 2 or 3 of the most impactful books that you've read, what would those be and why?
Beyond the Bible, for me, as a Christian, great business book, lots of great lessons in there. And for whatever your faith or religion is, if you're going to take it serious, learn it, know it, use it, whatever your Bible is. But from a business standpoint, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, Power of Positive Thinking, Norman Vincent Peale, and Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was instrumental for me. I didn't get real estate out of that book. I got build companies that generate cash flow to invest in other assets. I didn't study Robert Kiyosaki. I studied the Rich Dad. I wanted to be him, not Robert. So that's an interesting dynamic that a lot of people are like, wow, I never looked at it from that perspective. Go back and read that book again from the perspective I want to be Rich Dad, not Robert Kiyosaki.
I love that. And I totally love that book. And so many of our listeners, obviously their lives have been changed by many of the books that you just listed there, and especially Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it is really interesting to read it again from that perspective. So we'll have to do that. We'll have to take that on as a challenge. So thank you for that. Aside from our discussion today, what's the biggest way that you elevate your life on a daily basis?
Challenging myself. So, constantly challenging myself, taking, big actions in the right way and just staying focused and just, showing up every day as the best I can be in every way, pouring into myself, leading by example, and, challenging myself and just taking those risks.
That's awesome. Well, I know that this conversation has challenged us all to really step it up and to continue to raise our own bar. So thank you for that. And thank you for challenging yourself, even to be, present today in this conversation. So I really appreciate that. And aside from what we've already discussed today, and I mean, obviously you're leading so many people and serving others in so many different capacities. But if you were to point to the biggest way that you elevate others around you, what would that be?
Belief. So believing in people and knowing what they are capable of that they can't even see. So one of my gifting is finding what people were created to be on this earth, finding those God-given talents that they didn't even know they had and helping them bring it out. A lot of people just can't see what they can't see. So believing in them, knowing what they can do when they don't even know they can do it, and believing for them until they can believe for themselves. That's probably the biggest thing.
That's awesome. That's huge. And I believe that anything is possible. I believe that anybody listening to this show can do anything that they want in their life as long as they get the appropriate information, if they recognize their own psychology, if they recognize that if they can take effective action, course correct along the way, and bring other people in on the process, that anything is possible. And you've really showed us that today, Greg. So I really, really appreciate that. Is there any other parting thoughts or words of wisdom that you share with Elevate Nation today?
Surround yourself with big thinkers. Surround yourself with people that believe for you, believe with you, that will believe in you. Everybody needs somebody that will believe in them, and you need people that are at higher levels than you to challenge you to rise up. So if you're constantly hanging around with people that you're the highest net worth in your network, you have the most, the most skills, the most knowledge, you're in the wrong group. You've got to up your level. Now, I'm not saying get rid of everybody in your life that's not at your level. What I'm saying is be careful where you get your advice. Surround yourself with people that can help you bring your game up, that can help up level you and will believe in you. It always helps to have somebody encourage you, and then you go out and encourage others. So you should always be encouraging others, believing in others, helping others, and having somebody doing the same for you.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Pull someone else up and let someone else pull you up while they enjoy the process as well. And Greg, what an amazing conversation. I really, really appreciate you taking time today. And thank you for pouring in to others and to Elevate Nation today. I really just want to thank you for that. I really want to honor you for your continued growth and your continued commitment to not only yourself, but leading others and pulling others up along the way. Tell the listeners how they can learn more about what you do and get engaged with you and your company.
Yeah, GregDickerson.com. That's my website. It has everything. All the information is there. I've got a YouTube channel where I put out, short little tidbits every day about the kind of stuff we're talking about. And, what I'll leave everybody with is you have a choice of how to show up every day. I could have showed up to this thing and, hey, how's it going? What's up? No, I studied you. I studied your company. I studied the message you were looking for. I prepared myself so I could show up the best I could show up today, not just show up. So when you wake up every day, you've got two choices how you can show up. You can show up, or you can show up the best possible way you can show up. So don't settle for mediocrity. Show up your best every single day, all day.
That's huge. And I have to reiterate that because you showed up without any arrogance. I mean, you've continued to raise the bar and you've continued to create outstanding results, but you showed up without arrogance. You showed up with humility and you showed up prepared. And I just admire that. I really appreciate that. And I think that is absolutely the same across the board when you talk to the best of the best and the folks that are creating the greatest results in this world. I mean, it is what it is. And there's so much humility with that. And so I just honor that. And I really appreciate you saying that. And I want to encourage Elevate Nation to re-listen to the show because this has absolutely been pure gold. And I know I've said that multiple times. You may be rolling your eyes at this point, but I would highly encourage you to distill this down to, what are your top 3 key distinctions? I know that there's many more for myself and there's probably many more for you, but if you were to distill it down to what are your top 3 key distinctions and what can you do to apply those immediately? Because it is about identifying, but then most importantly, applying, how the best of the best, like somebody like Greg is raising the bar so that you can create effective action. And it is about taking massive action, but it's also about sharing with other people because, when you share this and when you teach this to someone else, you actually learn the most. And, they're also better off from hearing this message and from learning these tactics, from learning this approach. And, with all that said, I just want to thank you again, Greg, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun and I look forward to coming back again one day.
Absolutely. We'll definitely do round 2 soon. And with that said, Elevate Nation, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Elevate. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to elevate your results by taking immediate action on what you learned. For more, visit elevatepod.com.